Hi everybody, and welcome to D&D Horror Stories with D&D Doge. In today's video, we have a story about a player that loses his crap when another player decides to play a gay character. A story about a dungeon master that makes a player have less HP out of spite, and much more. But before we get into those, in order to help this video get some likes, here is Simba in a tiny box. If he fits, he sits. But with that, I think it's time we get into some D&D horror stories. Am I the a-hole for role-playing a gay character to spite one of my gay friends that always hits on me in-game? By Reddit user IcarusQT. I know this probably sounds horrible, but hear me out. I, a 30-year-old male, have a group of friends that always bounce together from campaign to campaign, and a couple of the dudes take turns DMing. Well, one of my gay friends, a 28-year-old male, always plays a female character, and when he does, he constantly hits on me in-game. I know he mainly does it as a joke, and it usually gets everyone laughing. I'll laugh about it, and always have to awkwardly turn him down in character. I'm far from anything even remotely close to homophobic, but I just don't have it in me to flirt back with him. Now, here's where I think I might be the a-hole. We started up a new campaign, and in anticipation of the same trend carrying over, I made my character gay. And sure as crap, he makes a female character as usual. The first session in, his character starts making advances towards me, and I politely responded with, "Sorry, I'm not interested, and it's nothing against you. I just don't like women at all." He responds with, "Wait, so are you saying that you're gay?" And I reply, "I sure am." He then goes out of character and says, "Alright dude, you can't just randomly say your character is gay on the spot." And I say, "I'm not. My character is actually gay. I even wrote it in my backstory." The dungeon master nods that it checks out. My gay friend then gets irate. He starts calling me a homophobe, saying that I can't roleplay a gay character and how I'm doing it just to spite him, and that I'm a bigot. Now, he's right in the sense that I was doing it to spite him, but I was mainly doing it for fun. I truly thought he, and everyone else, would think it was hilarious. I had no malicious intent. I was just trying to be funny. I tried texting him afterwards, explaining myself that I truly meant no disrespect, that I was just trying to be funny. But he just called me a homophobe again, and won't respond to any more of my texts. I feel really awful about the whole thing, but I really thought it would just be something small and funny. So, what do you guys think? Am I the a-hole? In my opinion, OP is not the a-hole in any way here. His friend was. So, it's okay for OP's gay friend to play a straight female character and hit on OP's character in-game. But the moment OP decides to make a gay character in order to prevent this, he's not allowed to play a character that's gay because he's straight? Kind of sounds like a rules for thee, not for me situation. And stating that it was homophobic is an extreme reach. It sounds to me like OP's friend was just mad that he couldn't hit on him in game anymore. Though, what do y'all think? Let's move on. How would you handle this player? By Reddit user GrouchyBowl8700. So, my group manages missing players in a fun way. When we don't have the whole crew for the main campaign, we'll run a one-shot with the players who can attend. Most of the time, we try to have someone other than the main campaign DM run the one-shot so he has a chance to be a player occasionally. Our most recent one-shot ended in a disappointing way. The Forever DM rolled up a death cleric, knight, who used a zombie as a squire, which was to the amusement of nearly all of us, except the guy who rolled up the stereotypical Loner Ranger, who's only in this for the money, and apparently takes contracts a little too literally. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out his character's motivation. Anyway, after the first encounter of the one-shot, Death Cleric decides he wants a second zombie minion because he is, quote, the best healer. Lone Ranger guy didn't like this. I think his character's motivation was that the zombie minion came from one of our enemies, so he was a bad guy who needed to stay down. For some reason, he decided to start attacking the zombie, and some combination of PvP and out-of-character communication finally made him stop trying to waste Forever DM's 3rd level spell slot. This should have been a bigger red flag. Skip forward to the final encounter of the one-shot. We are being paid to guard a town and a temple while they do their ritual. Yeah, this is going where you think it is. Specifically, we were told to, quote, not let anyone in. Long story short, we don't ally with the general that has come to town to put an end to the cult's activities and instead turn him away. I place a tiny hut at the entrance to the temple so no one except our party can enter or escape. Oops. And they summon the evil otherworldly being. Now, my character is true neutral / chaotic neutral warlock, so he doesn't see an issue with them summoning an eldritch being, but I still want to help the party. So every round, I step out of the tiny hut long enough to do my thing, then go back inside the hut and roleplay not being bothered by the happenings. Well, I think I got a rules lawyer a bit here. Technically, when the one who cast Tiny Hut exits said hut, it's supposed to disappear. But I digress. Meanwhile, Lone Ranger guy is sitting in the hut, doing nothing for a couple turns of combat, while the melee characters are getting destroyed by the enemy that was at least balanced around the full party participating, if not the full party plus some adds from the general we had turned away. At round 3, Lone Ranger guy finally decides to cast Hunter's Mark on my character. Out of character, I began asking some questions. Me, WTF dude? Lone Ranger guy, we were told not to let anyone in. Me, the rest of the party went in 2 rounds ago. Why haven't you been attacking them? Lone Ranger guy, I feel like we always do the same thing in these one-shots. Show up, fight the bad guy, and win. I thought I would do something different. Now, I'm the kind of player who always needs an exit strategy, so my Genie Warlock's familiar was hiding under my character's chef hat. Yeah, it was going to be a rat originally, but it had to be an owl. I lift my hat, jump into my Genie's vessel, and my owl, with Flyby, flies me away to safety. Lone Ranger guy then proceeds to help kill the rest of the party, and managed to get his character away to safety also. The other players left without saying too much, and the Forever DM was pretty mad because he doesn't get to be a player all that often. Seeing as it was a one-shot, I've kinda decided that we don't need to say anything to this player yet, and instead, wait until something like this happens again. Hopefully, if it does happen again, it happens in another one-shot, and not the main campaign. How would you handle it? Well, I think not saying anything about it to Lone Ranger would be a mistake. What he did was kinda selfish, as he didn't take into consideration how the other players would feel, especially the Forever DM. Just because he wasn't having fun doesn't mean he should be allowed to poo-poo the whole thing. I mean, if he was tired of what y'all do in the one-shots, then he could just not participate. Communication is key in D&D, or any tabletop RPG for that matter, and not letting him know how his actions ruined the game for everyone else is just going to make him think that it's okay to do so again. So, what are your guys' thoughts? On to the next one. New player couldn't handle that my character, a woman, was stronger than his. By Reddit user Greedy Amphibian 188. This is my first year in college, and I joined a D&D group through a friend who is also in the group. Currently, for the permanent campaign, the players are me, the only girl at the table, and 3 other guys, plus the Dungeon Master. Everyone is in my year, except one senior, with whom the DM plays basketball. Another guy, Jack, joined our table a few weeks ago. I have been playing a strength fighter, while the others have been playing characters with lower strength. Jack made a paladin. When the rest of us introduced our characters to him, he started to point out how weird it was that I, the smallest person, was playing a strength character. We just laughed about it, though he kept bringing up the point again and again, and was saying how now he had the strongest character. Eventually, my character and his had a tug of war, and I won. He got really sore about it, and started saying how D&D was not a skill-based game, and that it didn't make sense why the others were letting me play a fighter. I told him to let it go, as did the others. He started arguing with everyone, and it kept getting more and more heated, until eventually he shouted at me that I could pretend to play whatever strength I wanted, but he could still beat me up. The senior got really pissed, and told him to shut up and leave the table, which he did. I really don't understand people sometimes, and on which hills they choose to die on. Who the heck cares what OP was playing? It's a fantasy game where you make up characters and roleplay as them. But by this dude's standards, only people who can actually cast magic can play wizards or other casters. And God forbid that you play a halfling if you're taller than 4 feet. DM made the right decision in kicking this dude out when he just wouldn't let it go, especially after making the statement of being able to beat up OP. Why are people like this? Let's move on. Dungeon Master forces Monk to have lower max hit points on level up. Level 2 characters, 5th edition. By Reddit user Every Switch Sword. Not sure if this should be table dispute or out of game. I'm in another campaign where we have an artificer, monk, and fighter. All 4 of us know each other outside of D&D 5th edition. The party had a dream sequence at the end of the session as a sort of, quote, "How have you found the adventure so far?" question, with some mixed in plot elements relevant to our characters. The Dungeon Master has the monk's dream sequence where he needs to pray and show appreciation for a god, no one god in particular, and when he makes his decisions about how he wants to respond in his own dream sequence, the monk rolls for a max hit point increase afterward to be ready for the next session. He rolls an 8 plus 2 Constitution on his 1d8 hit dice, but the Dungeon Master forces the player to take a 6 plus 2 Constitution, 10 max hit points down to 8 max hit points. The player argues that this must be because he beat the Dungeon Master in another game that they both enjoy, and he feels sad about losing, because they simply played better in terms of catching them off guard and taking advantages where they could within that game's rule set. The Dungeon Master seems to be dancing around the issue, not wanting to fully bring up a reason why, other than, "You know why, monk." When it was the fighter's and artificer's turn after their dream sequence, fighter rolled a 7 plus 3 con on their 1d10 hit dice. No max health was taken away from them. Artificer rolled a 4 plus 3 con on his 1d hit dice, and no max health was taken from them either. They both did what they wanted, or felt was right, within their respective dream sequence. Should I try and convince the Dungeon Master to give the monk back their rolled max hit points in this situation? Edit to answer some replies. 1. This group is ironically some of the only friends that I have who simultaneously like playing D&D. We play in person. I would consider online D&D for more groups to play with, but I'm already pretty time-bound as a university-level student. 2. They seem to want to, quote, win D&D. As I remember, the fighter using Second Wind tells DM that it comes back on a short or long rest, and the Dungeon Master half mutters, "Yeah, we're not having a long rest just yet." But then, when the fighter is in their death saving throws, using Second Wind in a previous combat escaping a town, they suddenly care about if the fighter lives or dies. 3. Monk player, I believe, is also a quote win D&D type player, but is accepting when something doesn't go their way. This was just a moment where both DM and player clearly saw an 8 on the 1d8, and the Dungeon Master forced it into a 6. So I believe more discussion between members is a must. 4. I plan to ask the DM, next time it's their campaign, about their reasoning for the hit point reduction, or if it was just a, "Hey, I was just kidding" type moment, after the group reconfirms with him about the DM's decision. 4.5. No, Monk did not fudge dice rolls, or ever fudge them when we play together, even for checks, damage, etc. Man, I have to say that is kind of BS to do that to Monk after rolling for their level HP increase. I know how awesome it feels when rolling for HP and seeing that dice roll the max it can, and to take that away really sucks. It does sound to me like the Dungeon Master did do this because he was salty about losing whatever other game that he and the Monk play in. Hopefully, everyone involved can talk this out, and the Dungeon Master ends up giving Monk what he rolled. That way, the game can go on without further issues. On to the next post. Dungeon Master forced my OC's parents to be slave owners and traffickers. By Reddit user Wishing for a Fish. Hello, long-time lurker, first-time poster. Sorry if this is formatted weird. I have minimal clue how posting on Reddit works. For context, I'm fairly new to D&D. I've only been in a handful of games, all of which end up pretty terribly, and this is one of them. How I left this campaign isn't really relevant, and boils down to a lot of friend group F-ups, so I'll expunge a good bit of unnecessary details. I'm also really bad at saying no, especially since I'm new to D&D. Dungeon Master was also a very close friend at the time. For character context, my character had parents who were politicians and did corrupt political things, such as extortion and blackmail. Typical politician things. Both me and the DM were cool with it, as that's what I decided was the case. Cut to the campaign, and things are going well. I play my character, DM plays a DMPC, and everyone else plays theirs. Then I notice that an NPC really hates my player character for whatever reason. Mind you, this NPC is written into another character's backstory, so I figure he hates my player character because the two are friends, so I just move along. Then, it's revealed to me why this NPC hates me. Apparently, my player character's parents trafficked the NPC's species and a few other species into slavery. When I heard this, I was definitely shell-shocked. This wasn't what I discussed and greenlit with the Dungeon Master, especially as a person who is a person of color, which makes this a little more ironic. I can understand wanting to use dark themes in your stories, and I don't knock it, but to suddenly spring that on a player, which will have extreme negative in-game effects. Basically, most NPCs were hostile towards my character for something that I didn't even say was okay to include. It's pretty messed up. I should have said no then and there, but I didn't know that was something that DMs probably shouldn't do. Like I said, I did end up leaving that campaign, which caused a whole other menagerie of issues, which may be a post for another day. Is this a DM red flag? Am I just the crazy one? Please let me know. I know I should have at least stood up for myself at this point. Minor edit. I think I didn't articulate my point well in my initial post, and I apologize. I speak languages other than English, so I struggle to get things across well. I'll dumb extra details down into bullet points. There was a Session 0. Slavery was not introduced till after. I am okay with dark themes. In-game slavery is okay with me. I'm not sensitive to such topics. Only I received a backstory switch-up as large as this. I tried to roleplay my character overcoming her parents. Nothing worked. Yes, I should have stood up for myself. My friendship didn't end due to this. That's a dumb reason to end a friendship. Remembering some more, I have voiced my discomfort to this DM before in a different campaign, and was met with laughter and jeers. This may be a quote, "you should have left earlier" type thing, but for some more context. Now, it's nothing new for a Dungeon Master to take a player's character's backstory and build upon it, adding things from said backstories to pop up in the game to make things more engaging and personal for the players. Though what this Dungeon Master did could be seen as taking things a bit too far. I think OP's main issue with this revelation was how it made the world interact with their character, and I think the Dungeon Master could have had OP's parents be evil in this way, but more as a secret that OP would uncover, rather than the whole world knowing about it with OP's character none the wiser. But as it did bother OP should have said something about it to the Dungeon Master, but as they later alluded to, that may not have yielded any results, since OP has done so in the past and wasn't taken seriously. It also sounds like this game fell apart for other reasons that OP didn't get into, but perhaps that was for the best. Maybe that way, OP has the time to find a different table to play with that would take a player having an issue with something with a bit more tact. Let's move on. High charisma character flaunting stolen armor in front of owner, by Reddit user Captain Rumrunner. For some background, the party went to a village to help with a were-rat problem. One of the villagers is a retired lycanthrope hunter, and one of the town leaders. Due to a concussion, they can't take care of the problem for the village, and is having memory issues. A priest is assisting him in running things until he recovers, so he gives the party access to his home, telling them that there may be something to help them. They find potions to cure the were-rats easy enough, and a safe full of what I make clear are his memorabilia from his hunting glory days. One of the party members takes the armor and immediately equips it. After the party peacefully resolves the were-rat problem by distributing their curing potions, they return to the priest and the hunter. The player announces out of character that they are still wearing the armor, and will not return it unless forced to. I've had previous issues with this player about them not liking my rulings, i.e., no, you cannot have a whole ship for free because you rolled a high persuasion, and other quotes, charisma is not mind control related issues, and it's killed a campaign or two before. Is it unreasonable for the priest and hunter to withhold payment to the party unless the items are returned, even with a charisma check? Well, in this particular case with the armor, OP did say that it belonged to a retired lycanthrope hunter, so maybe have the ex-hunter recognize the armor, and with a high enough charisma check, have said hunter say something along the lines of, "This armor served me well in my glory days. It pleases me to see it still doing its job. You go ahead and take it, as it will be of better use in the field, rather than sitting on my shelf." Or something like that. Though I think OP is just using this as the most recent example of this particular player being an argumentative one. At the end of the day, what the DM says goes, and if he doesn't like the way you rule things, just tell him that he can always try a different table. Though, What would you guys do if you were in OP's shoes here? But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.